Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually, when we crack open a book on this show, we're looking for answers. We're looking for a strategy or maybe a historical fact or some kind of scientific clarity.
Right, something practical.
Exactly. But today we are heading to a place where clarity basically goes to die.
Oh, absolutely.
We're heading to the street corner. We are heading to the stoop, the borough of churches, which, if you actually read the source material we have today, is really the borough of shadows. We are doing a deep dive into Brooklyn Noir.
And right off the bat, I mean, we really have to adjust our lenses for this one, because if you're out there picturing the Brooklyn of today, the artisanal mayonnaise shops, the high-rise condos with the floor-to-ceiling glass, the stroller gridlock and Park Slope.
Right, the very gentrified version.
Yeah, you need to wipe that image away entirely, or at least peel it back. Because the anthology we are covering today, which was edited by Tim McLoughlin, it suggests that underneath that shiny veneer, the old, dangerous, tribal Brooklyn is still writhing around down there.
Writhing is a really good word for it. This collection from Akashic Books, it essentially defined the city noir genre.
Yeah.
And what struck me immediately, just getting into the source material, is the geography of it all. I think people who aren't from New York tend to think of Brooklyn as just one big thing.
Like a monolith.
Right, like I'm going to Brooklyn. But reading these stories, it feels a lot less like a city and more like a collection of, fortified villages.
Fortified villages is exactly right. That is the essential context for everything we're going to discuss today. You have to understand that Brooklyn is a patchwork of extremely distinct, very insulated neighborhoods. You have the Hasidic enclaves of Williamsburg, which operate almost like a 19th century Eastern European village. Then you have the fading Irish pubs of Sunset Park. You have the West Indian communities in Crown Heights. And the book actually opens with this quote from Thomas Wolfe that I think is it's the perfect epigraph for this whole deep dive.
Oh, I have it right here. It's written in that heavy old school dialect, too. Wolfe wrote, "There's no guy living that knows Brooklyn true and true, because it'd take a guy a lifetime just to find his way around Dufftown."
The dialect really grounds you in that era, sure, but look at the sentiment behind it. It's a labyrinth. You can live your entire life in Red Hook and have absolutely no idea what the rules are in Canarsie.
Which brings us to the real mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We need to figure out what noir actually means in this specific context. Because usually, when we say noir, we have a very specific checklist in our heads.
Fedora, check.
Right, femme fatale, check. Rainy street corner, private eye drinking bourbon at 10 in the morning, check.
But while there are maybe tiny elements of that here, most of these stories really don't fit that mold at all.
No, they don't. There aren't many private eyes. There aren't many of those intricate, smoky heist plots. So if we're looking at this source, what is the thread? If it's not the trench coat, what actually makes this noir?
It's the code. That is the argument the book makes, and it's what I want us to really unpack today. In Brooklyn Noir, the darkness doesn't come from some villain twirling a mustache in a shadowy alley. It comes from the rigid, often deeply violent secret rules that govern these specific neighborhoods.
The unwritten laws.
Exactly. If you live on this block, you follow this code. If you cross the street, the rules might completely change. And the tragedy, the real noir element, usually comes from someone either breaking that code or suddenly realizing that the code they lived their whole life by was a total lie.
And Tim McLoughlin, the editor, he actually touches on this right in the introduction. He tells this anecdote that, honestly, I had to read twice. He talks about getting a phone call from one of his father's old friends.
He was an old school guy.
Very old school. A guy with literal scar tissue. A guy who is capable of extreme violence.
Right, the kind of guy who wouldn't hesitate to break someone's jaw if they disrespected the neighborhood.
Exactly that guy.
Right.
And they're talking on the phone, catching up, and right before he hangs up, this hardened street tough says to McLoughlin, "You know I love you."
It stops you right in your tracks, doesn't it?
It really does. Because you just don't expect that level of tenderness from that specific archetype. It feels contradictory.
But McLoughlin argues it isn't contradictory at all. He calls it the language of inclusion. And this is a startlingly insightful takeaway from the intro. He says the only men he has ever known who are truly comfortable saying, "I love you," to another man are the exact same men capable of the most extreme violence.
Wait, unpack that for me. Why are those two things connected in this world?
Because in a fundamentally dangerous world, in a world where the police are viewed as the enemy, or the landlord is the enemy, or the neighborhood next door is the enemy, love is a survival mechanism. That phrase, I love you, isn't just about soft affection. It's a tactical statement. It means you are one of us. You are in the circle. I will protect you, and I will do terrible, violent things to anyone who tries to hurt you.
So love and violence are just two sides of the exact same coin here. To be loved is to be protected by violence.
Precisely. And the flip side is true as well. To be outside of that love is to be completely vulnerable to the violence. So keeping that in mind, this whole idea of tribal protection, let's look at the first section of our analysis today, which is about the weight of the past. We have to start with Pete Hamill's story.
The book signing.
Yes.
Man, this story, it's set in Park Slope. And for anyone listening who knows Park Slope today, it's basically the capital of strollers, organic markets, and multi-million-dollar brownstones.
Yeah.
But Hamill takes us into the mind of a guy named Carmody.
And Carmody is a fascinating protagonist because he is, by all societal accounts, a massive success story. He's a writer. He got out of Brooklyn. He lives out in California, now Malibu, I think.
Yeah, Malibu.
He plays tennis. He's got the California tan. And now he's back in his old neighborhood for a reading at a bookstore on 7th Avenue.
But he is not comfortable. He's walking down these streets that he remembers as being full of, Irish bars and butcher shops with sawdust on the floor.
Right.
And instead, he's seeing computer stores and art supply shops. The text actually says the streets are latte-drenched.
Latte-drenched. It is such a dismissive sensory description. But notice why he's so uncomfortable. It's not just the gentrification that's bothering him. It's his own reflection.
Yes.
He looks in the mirror at the bookstore and thinks to himself, he looked like a writer, all right.
That line really jumped out at me, too. It's almost like he feels like he's wearing a costume.
Because he knows he's a hack. The source points out he writes these commercially successful novels about industries. Sugar, cars, weapons. He's not writing literature. He's manufacturing content.
Right.
He feels like an imposter in his old neighborhood because this place used to be about authenticity, about grit. And he's soft now. He's Malibu soft.
So he's dealing with this heavy internal imposter syndrome. And then he steps outside to have a cigarette before the event, and he runs into a ghost. Not a literal ghost, obviously, but a guy named Shawnee Mulrain.
And this is where the noir element ambushes you. In a lesser story, Shawnee would have a knife, or he'd be some mob enforcer showing up to collect a gambling debt. But Shawnee is just a guy from the past. He's the brother of Molly Mulrain.
Molly, the girl that Carmody left behind.
And left behind is putting it mildly. Carmody completely abandoned her 46 years ago to go chase his writing career in the sun. And Shawnee, he doesn't scream at Carmody. He doesn't throw a punch. He just lays out the facts. He tells Carmody that Molly never married.
This part just broke my heart reading it. Shawnee says she basically stayed in her room for decades. She turned into a total recluse. She was just frozen in time, waiting for him to come back.
And then the hammer drops. Shawnee reveals that Molly was pregnant when Carmody left. She had Carmody's son.
Wow.
And she gave the boy up for adoption because she couldn't handle it alone.
I mean, just imagine hearing that on a sidewalk while you're waiting to go inside and sign books for your fans. You didn't just leave a girlfriend. You left an entire life. You completely erased a lineage.
And look at Carmody's reaction. This is key to the noir theme. A hero would try to find her. A hero would ask where the sun is today. What does Carmody do?
He runs.
Yeah.
He literally turns around and flees back into the bookstore.
And Hamill uses this incredible metaphor. He says Carmody feels a feral pack behind him.
The feral pack.
Nah.
I circled that 3 times in my notes.
It's brilliant. It's not real wolves. It's the accumulation of his own guilt. It's every woman he's ever lied to, every corner he's cut, every selfish decision he's made in his life, manifesting as a pack of beasts hunting him down the street. He thinks the bookstore, this well-lit, safe, gentrified space, is going to protect him.
But the past can walk right through doors in Brooklyn. He's sitting there, signing books, sweating bullets, and then an old woman appears in the line.
Molly. And the physical description the source gives, she's spectral. Pale skin, white hair, totally silent. She is the living embodiment of the damage he did half a century ago. And she puts her bag on the table.
I'll be honest, when I was reading this, I thought she was going to shoot him. I thought, okay, here it is. This is the noir ending. Bang.
Right, it is a gun in the bag. It's a nickel-plated .38 that belonged to her father. But she doesn't shoot him. And I would argue that what she actually does is infinitely more cruel than pulling the trigger.
She hands him the gun. She gives it to him as a gift.
Her father's nickel-plated gift. Think about the symbolism there. If she shoots him, his suffering ends right there. He dies a tragic figure in a bookstore. But by handing him the gun, she is transferring the entire weight of the past onto him.
Oh, that's heavy.
She's essentially saying, I have carried this potential for violence, this heaviness, for 46 years. Now you carry it.
It's a curse.
It's a massive burden. He has to go back to Malibu, back to his tennis courts and his superficial novels, with this heavy, cold piece of steel in his luggage that reminds him every single day of the son he abandoned and the woman he completely destroyed.
So the key takeaway from Park Slope is that you can leave the borough, you can reinvent yourself, but your sins stay fresh. They don't age. They just wait for you.
They wait on the corner.
So let's take the N train south. We're going to Sunset Park for the story When All This Was Bay Ridge by the editor, Tim McLoughlin.
If the last story was about an individual running from his past, this story is about a whole community trying to deny the present.
We're inside a place called Olson's Bar, and the atmosphere here is incredibly heavy. The narrator describes it as a bunker.
Or an embassy in a foreign country. That is such a telling line from the text. We are in Sunset Park, a neighborhood that, by the time of this story, is predominantly Hispanic. It's diverse, it's vibrant, there's life on the street. But inside Olson's, it is 1965, it is white, it is Irish, and it is terrified.
The narrator calls the patrons the last of the donkeys, which is kind of funny, but also deeply sad. And he's there for a reason, right? His father just died. And while going through his stuff, he found a photo, a picture of his dad with a woman who isn't his mom.
It's the classic Noir setup, who is the mystery woman. So he goes to his dad's old sanctuary, Olson's, hoping to get some answers from the guys who knew him best.
But he hits a wall immediately. The code kicks in.
The code of silence. Marty, the bartender, the other old-timers, they stonewall him. They tell him, let the dead sleep. They are protecting the father's reputation even after he's in the ground. It shows how tight that tribe is. You don't rat on a friend, not even to his own son.
But there is one guy who talks to him, Frank Sanchez. And he's a very complicated character.
Frank is maybe the most tragic figure in the story. He's a Hispanic man, a retired cop, but he spends his days in this very Irish bar, trying desperately to be one of the guys. He's engaging in this aggressive assimilation.
Yeah.
He identifies with the white Irish cops he used to work with, not with the Hispanic neighborhood just outside the door.
And to prove this bond, to prove to the narrator that they are cut from the same cloth, Frank tells him a story, a war story from the old days. And I have to say, this story within a story made me physically ill.
It's supposed to. It's horrific. Now, as a reminder to the listener, we're just imparting what the source material presents here to analyze the themes, but it is brutal. Frank talks about a night in the precinct where a drunk guy was brought in. The drunk insulted a uniformed cop, just words, and the cop, he pulls his service weapon and shoots the handcuffed man in the face inside the station house.
It's chilling.
Yeah.
But what happens next is the real noir element. The sergeant on duty, the boss, he doesn't arrest the shooter.
No. The sergeant immediately grabs a billy club and breaks the shooter's arm.
He breaks the cop's arm.
To frame it as self-defense. He sets the narrative. The prisoner attacked you, he broke your arm, you had to shoot to save your life. In a split second, the code took over. The truth didn't matter. The law didn't matter at all. The only thing that mattered was protecting one of us against one of them.
And Frank Sanchez is telling this story like it's a fond memory. He's telling it to bond with the narrator.
He fully expects the narrator to nod and say, yeah, those were the good old days. Men were men. But the narrator is repulsed. He looks at Frank and realizes that this old school Brooklyn wasn't a paradise. It was a place of brutal, corrupt tribalism.
Which brings us to the title of the story, When All This Was Bay Ridge.
Right. Geographically, Sunset Park was never Bay Ridge. But the father and the guys in the bar, they used to say, when all this was Bay Ridge, as a way of extending the boundaries of the white, safe neighborhood to cover where they lived. It's a cartographic lie. It's a state of mind that actively denies reality.
In the end, the narrator takes that photo of the mystery woman. He never actually finds out who she is, and he tears it up. He drops it into the sewer.
And McLoughlin connects that final image to a memory the narrator has of being a kid playing in the subway tunnels and seeing a severed hand on the tracks.
Which is just... wow.
It's the idea that history in Brooklyn is never whole. You don't get the full story. You get fragments, a torn photo, a severed hand, a whispered story in a dive bar. The rest just gets washed away in the sewer. It's a remarkably bleak view of legacy.
It really is. Okay, let's pivot. We've been talking about the old school white ethnic codes, but Brooklyn Noir makes a very strong point of showing us that every single neighborhood has a code. And nowhere is that code more rigid than in Williamsburg.
But again, not the Williamsburg of vintage clothing stores and record shops. We're talking about the Satmar Hasidic community in Pearl Abraham's story, Hasidic Noir.
This story has such a great concept. We have a Hasidic private investigator.
Which sounds like a setup for a punchline, but is treated with total seriousness. He usually solves petty stuff, white-collar fraud, business disputes within the community, but he stumbles onto a murder case, or at least what looks like a murder case.
Right, it involves the Dobrover Rebbe. So we have these two rival sects in the community, the Dobrov and the Seabed. It's basically the Montagues and Capulets, but with rabbinical courts and fur hats.
And notice how the detective has to work in this environment. He can't just go knock on doors and interview people. In this community, asking direct questions is considered extremely rude, or worse, suspicious. It directly violates their code.
So how does he actually investigate?
He uses social osmosis. He goes to the mikveh, the ritual bathhouse, and just quietly listens to the gossip while the men are washing. He goes to the kosher lunch counter at Landau's and eavesdrops. He analyzes a slanderous pamphlet that's being passed around the neighborhood. He is essentially a detective of word on the street.
But then he does something strictly forbidden. He uses the internet.
The treif, or non-kosher technology. He goes into online chat rooms. He realizes that to solve this crime, he has to step outside the bounds of the code. He starts spreading rumors anonymously online, accusing the rival sect, specifically the brother-in-law, of the murder. He fights fire with fire, using gossip as a weapon.
But he flies way too close to the sun. The secular media picks it up. The village voice starts asking questions. And that is the ultimate sin in this world, bringing outsiders into the community's business.
Exactly. You can accuse a man of murder internally, but don't you dare get the village voice involved. So because of this, he is summoned to the rabbinical court, the Bet Din.
This scene is fascinating. He's formally accused of libel. They treat killing a man's reputation as actual, literal murder.
Which, in an insular community, it absolutely is. If you destroy a man's name in a place where everyone knows everyone, you have ended his life. But the detective pulls his ace card during the trial. He reveals that the corpse, the Dobrover Rebbe, is actually alive.
They literally wheel the guy into the courtroom.
He is physically alive. But here's the twist, and I think you might have missed the deeper nuance of the ending when you first read it. You might think, oh, he's alive, so no crime was committed.
Well, yeah, if the guy is breathing, it's not a murder.
Not in this world. The story reveals that the Rebbe had been excommunicated. His wife was granted a divorce against his will. His children were taken away from him. He was stripped of his title. He was entirely erased from the community roles. So yes, his heart was still beating. But the community had killed him.
Oh, so the murder was real. It was a social execution.
Exactly. And that is the noir of it. The darkness isn't a bullet. It's the sheer power of the community to say, you no longer exist. The detective solved the case, but he revealed a truth that was much uglier than a physical killing.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
It totally redefines what it means to be dead in Brooklyn.
It goes right back to that language of inclusion we talked about. If inclusion is life, exclusion is death.
Speaking of inclusion and exclusion, let's go over to Crown Heights. This is Adam Mansbach's story, Crown Heist, and this feels like a violent clash of two very different codes.
This is the story that deals most directly with gentrification and the immense friction between the new Brooklyn and the real Brooklyn. We have Lazarus, a white Jewish guy who has fully adopted the Rastafarian lifestyle.
Lazarus is a character we have all met in real life. He wears the knitted cap, he smokes a lot of weed, he keeps his door unlocked because he believes in the philosophy of one love. He even calls his apartment Little Kingston.
He believes he is assimilated. He thinks that just because he adopts the aesthetics and the surface philosophy of the neighborhood, he is automatically safe. He thinks his good vibes are a literal force field.
But the narrator, T, sees right through him. T is a local guy. And T watches Lazarus with this potent mix of amusement and outright contempt.
And then the inevitable happens. Lazarus gets robbed. His stash is gone. His money is gone. And this is the pivot point of the story. How does the One Love guy react when faced with actual violence?
He snaps. He breaks his own code almost immediately.
It is instantaneous. He goes to his supplier, Cornelius, and procures a gun. And the scene where they go to confront the prime suspect, a local kid named Jumpshot, it is incredibly tense. Lazarus, this tall, skinny, supposedly peace-loving guy, turns into a monster. He pistol whips this kid. He shoots a bullet into a pillow right next to the kid's head.
It was honestly shocking how easily he slipped into that violence. It was like the Rasta thing was just a costume, and underneath was just another angry guy leveraging power.
It reveals that his pacifism was a luxury. It was a privilege. When push came to shove, he used the threat of lethal force just like anyone else would. He gets his stuff back, well, most of it, and he decides he is done with Brooklyn. He's going to take a bus and just disappear.
And this is where the story twists the knife. Lazarus trusts T. He leaves T in charge of his apartment while he goes to the bus station. But as Lazarus is sitting on that bus, waiting to escape,
T reveals the absolute truth to the reader. T was the one who robbed Lazarus in the first place.
the call was coming from inside the house.
T set him up entirely. T stole the weed. It was actually hidden in the bag Lazarus packed, but T switched it out. And the ultimate betrayal. T called the cops. As the story ends, the police are boarding the bus to arrest Lazarus.
And T is just sitting back in the apartment, smoking Lazarus's weed, wearing Lazarus's brand new Jordans.
That detail about the Jordans is crucial. It represents the code of acquisition. T looks at Lazarus and sees a tourist. A fake tourist who came in, played dress up, and tried to act like he belonged. T doesn't feel an ounce of guilt. To T, Lazarus was a resource. He was a mark.
It's class warfare, essentially. Lazarus has the sheer privilege to leave. He can just buy a bus ticket and start over somewhere else. T is stuck there, so T takes what he can get to survive.
One love versus get yours. In Noir, get yours always wins. Lazarus thought he was playing by the neighborhood rules, but he never understood the real rules. Use or be used.
Okay, I need to take a deep breath before this next one, because we are going to Canarsie, and we are going to talk about Practicing by Ellen Miller.
I agree. We need to slow down for this. This is, without a doubt, the most disturbing story in the collection, but not in a slasher horror movie way, in a deeply emotional, profoundly psychological way.
It's about a father and daughter. The father is an iron worker. He paints bridges, the Verrazano, the Williamsburg. He works the high steel, and he loves his daughter, B. He loves her so much it's suffocating.
But his love is entirely warped by his fear. He sees death every single day at work. He knows that one slip up there means you're gone forever. So he decides to train B.
Practicing. He makes her lie on a bench, and he physically presses down on her chest to build her core muscles. But the worst part, he takes her to Canarsie Pier in the middle of the night.
The imagery here is stark. It's pitch dark, the water is black, and he gives her meticulous instructions on how to survive falling off a bridge. Clench your muscles. Go in feet first. Squeeze your butt cheeks.
So the water doesn't rush in and destroy your insides. Hearing a father say that to a little girl made my stomach turn.
It's horrific, but we have to look at the why. He tells her the story of Danny Testaverde, a local boy who climbed a bridge on a dare. The men cheered him on, but then he slipped. The story explicitly describes his intestines springing out like party streamers when he hit the water.
God.
The father is deeply traumatized. He is haunted by the fragility of the human body. He knows he can't protect B from the world. He sees the world as a meat grinder. So he tries to turn her into iron. He's trying to armor her.
But the environment itself creates this overwhelming sense of doom. The water at Canarsie Pier, they talk about the Canarsie whitefish.
He used condoms floating in the bay. It's such a grotesque detail. You have this innocent child being trained for survival, staring at the literal filth of the city floating in the water. It represents the sheer toxicity of their world.
And speaking of toxicity, we have to talk about aniline blue. The father mentions this stuff.
It's the pigment in the paint. He scrapes off the bridges all day. It's poison. It seeps into your skin. It turns your blood bad. And that is what actually kills him in the end. He doesn't fall off a bridge. He dies of blood poisoning. The job killed him from the inside out.
So all that practicing, all that terror he inflicted on his daughter, it didn't save him.
And it didn't save her either. The story ends with B feeling that she was born bad. She internalized his fear. She realizes that the practicing wasn't really for her safety at all. It was for him. It was the only way he could manage his own relentless anxiety. He used her as a vessel for his fear.
That is the real tragedy. The noir here isn't a crime. It's the profound damage that parents pass down to their children just by trying to survive in a hard city.
Born bad. It suggests that the darkness is inherited.
Okay. That was incredibly heavy. I think we need a palate cleanser. We need to step away from the abyss for just a second. Let's talk about No Time for Seniors by Sydney Offutt.
Yes, please. This is a much-needed tonal shift. This story is basically a love letter to a different kind of Brooklyn. The mythical Damon Runyon Brooklyn of Wise Guys and Diners.
It's genuinely funny. We have a private eye named Pistol Pete, and the crime isn't a dark, brooding tragedy. It's about a poker game, poison mustard, and cheesecake.
Specifically, the rivalry between Juniors, the real famous cheesecake place, and a fictional rival called Seniors. But the real core of this entire story is baseball.
the Brooklyn Dodgers.
The absolute obsession with them. The characters in this story are stuck in time. They speak almost entirely in baseball stats. There's a character named IF who quotes poetry and batting averages interchangeably.
And the murder happens because of this obsession. The killer, Dusty, is a deli worker who just finally snaps.
Because he's a Giants fan. He hates the constant weeping nostalgia for the Brooklyn Dodgers. He hates hearing about dem bums day in and day out. He kills because he literally cannot stand the sentimentalizing of the past anymore.
Which is incredibly meta, right? Because the story itself is deeply sentimental.
Exactly. It is a satire. Offit is poking fun at how Brooklynites fetishize their history. We love to talk about Ebbets Field and the good old days, but the story suggests that nostalgia can be a trap, or in this case, an actual motive for murder. It's a lighter story, but it still fits the core theme. You are defined by your tribe. Are you a Dodgers fan or a Giants fan? In Brooklyn, that distinction used to be life or death.
Finally, we have to look at the story that feels the most modern. The most prophetic, really. Hunter-Trapper by Arthur Nersesian.
This brings us out of the bar and off the street and right into the digital world. The story is told entirely through emails.
We have two handles. Got You a Cash and Catch Me If You Can.
Got2You presents as the Predator. He's a serial killer. He meets women in S&M chat rooms and tries to lure them out into the real world to kill them. Catch Me If You Can is his target. Or so he thinks.
It starts as a typical cat-and-mouse game. He wants to meet. She plays coy, wanting friendship. But then the dynamic shifts entirely. She stops sounding scared.
She starts analyzing him. She's a clinician. She reads his emails and breaks down his murderous mind. She points out his total lack of empathy. She diagnoses his childhood head trauma. She basically dissects his psyche in real time.
And there's this amazing moment where the digital world and the physical world collide. He tries to spot her on the Brooklyn Bridge.
He's standing there with binoculars looking for a woman in a red scarf. He thinks he's the hunter, but he can't find her. Instead, she spots a peregrine falcon attacking a pigeon.
That metaphor is just perfect.
It is. But what's truly terrifying is the email she sends afterward. She details exactly what she saw. She was watching him. She saw him looking for her. The hunter became the prey.
She basically dismantles him. He tries to ghost her to inflict psychological pain, but she's already won. She has exposed him as a sad, broken little man.
It shows that the code of Brooklyn has migrated. The anonymity that used to allow people to disappear in the city crowds, now it's the anonymity of the internet. You can be anyone behind a screen. But Nersesian is saying that the darkness is still there, the predator is still there, the medium changed, but the noir remains exactly the same.
So bringing this all together for the listener, we've been to Park Slope, Sunset Park, Williamsburg, Crown Heights, Canarsie, and the internet. What is the overarching picture of Brooklyn we are left with?
I think we are left with a map of hazards. Brooklyn Noir argues that there is no community in the singular sense. There are only communities, plural.
And each one has a tripwire.
Exactly. If you walk into the Irish bar and ask the wrong question about the past, you hit a tripwire. If you walk into the Crown Heights apartment and act like a tourist, you hit a tripwire. If you try to use the internet in a Hasidic investigation, you hit a tripwire.
The noir isn't about solving the crime. It's about surviving the environment.
It's about the cost of belonging. Remember that line from the intro? No, I love you. The cost of that love is that you have to abide by the rules. You have to hate who the tribe hates. You have to keep the secrets the tribe keeps.
And if you don't,
then you're out. You're Carmody running from a pack of ghosts. You're the Dobrover Rebbe being erased from the Book of Life. You're Lazarus getting arrested on a bus.
It makes me think about that line from Practicing Again, Born Bad.
Do you think the book is ultimately saying the city corrupts people?
I think it's saying the city compresses people. It pushes millions of us together into this tiny geographic space, all of us carrying our own histories, our traumas, our biases. And when you compress things that tightly, you get heat, you get intense friction, and sometimes you get an explosion.
Noir is just the sound of that explosion.
Or the silence right after it. Well, on that cheerful note, seriously though, this collection is a masterpiece of mood. It makes you look at your own neighborhood a little differently. For everyone listening, I want you to think about this. In a city of millions, who is watching you from the digital shadows or from the window across the air shaft, what codes are you following right now that you don't even realize you're following?
And what sins are waiting for you on the corner?
Until next time, keep your head on a swivel. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Watch your step.